Hello students, in today's lecture I will discuss about projection and types of projection. So the projection can be defined as it is a displaying three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional view plane. Before projection we have already seen viewing, and viewing is basically to view the object from different positions and to display that object on the device coordinate is called as viewing. A projection is basically it is the representation of three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional view plane, because the screen that we are having is having only two coordinates, that is the x-axis and the y-axis. So how we could able to represent a three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional view plane is a part of projection. Once world coordinate descriptions of the object in a scene are converted to viewing coordinates, we can project the three-dimensional object on the two-dimensional view plane. So it is the process of displaying a 3D object into a 2D object. It is also defined as mapping or transformation of the object in projection plane or view plane. So what is happening? We are representing a three-dimensional object on two-dimensional plane, and that plane we are calling it as a projection plane or the view plane. The view plane is displayed surface because the object is displayed on the view plane. So projections are of two types. First is parallel projection and second is called as perspective projection. When the projection lines are parallel, you can see in the figure, when the projection lines are parallel, then it is called as parallel projection. And whenever the projection lines are converging to types of projection. Projection can be a parallel projection or it can be a perspective projection. In case of parallel projection, the projection lines are parallel to each other, and after some time they are intersecting at the view plane. The intersection point defines the new position of the object. So here you can see that these are the projection lines. These are the projection lines and these two lines are parallel, and this is the view plane on which we are representing the object, and after some time these lines are intersecting on the view plane, and the intersection points, that is the A dash B dash, defines the new object on the view plane. While in case of perspective projection, what is happening, the lines are not parallel but they are converging at some point, and it is called as center of projection. So here you can see that the projection lines are coming and they are intersecting on the view plane, and after that they are converging at some point. So the intersection point E dash B dash defines the new object. So parallel projections are basically, it is typically used for architectural and engineering drawing, while the perspective projection, it is used for displaying the realistic images. In parallel projection, coordinate positions are transformed to the view plane along parallel lines. While in case of perspective projection, object positions are transformed to the view plane along lines that converge to a point called as projection reference point or center of projection. So in parallel projection, the lines are parallel, while in perspective projections, the lines are not parallel but they are converging at some point, which is called as projection reference point. And the intersection of projection lines with the view plane defines the new coordinate positions of the objects. So here you can see that these lines are intersecting on the view plane, and the intersection point defines the new position of the object. The projected view of an object is determined by calculating the intersection of the projection line with the view plane. Parallel projection preserves relative proportions of the object. That means in parallel projection, the dimensions of the object does not changes. So what is the advantage of that? The advantage is that accurate views of various sides of an object are obtained with parallel projection, but this does not give us a realistic representation. So we could able to get the accurate views of the object, but we could not able to produce realistic images by using parallel projection. A perspective projection, on the other hand, produces realistic images. but it does not preserve relative proportions of the object, because whenever you are performing perspective projection, the dimensions of the object changes. But the advantage is that we could able to represent realistic images using perspective projection. Now, in case of perspective projection, what is happening? Projections of distant objects are smaller than the projections of the objects of the same size that are closer to the projection plane. So here you can see that we are having two objects and the distance of object from the view plane is different. So the object which is having less distance from the view plane will look bigger in comparison to the object which is far from the view plane. So it is clearly can be seen. It is clearly can be seen from the diagram. Now parallel projections are of two types. First is orthographic projection and second is oblique projection. When the projection lines are perpendicular to the view plane, then it is called as orthographic projection. When the projection lines are not perpendicular to the view plane, then it is called as oblique parallel projection. When the projection is perpendicular to the view plane, we have an orthographic parallel projection. Otherwise, we have an oblique parallel projection. So here we can see the different types of projection. Projection can be categorized as a parallel projection or perspective projection. Perspective projections can be of three types: 1 point, 2 point and 3 point. Parallel projections can be further categorized as orthographic parallel projection and oblique parallel projection. Oblique parallel projections can be of cabinet or cavalier projection, while orthographic projections, while with the help of orthographic projection we could able to produce top, front and side view of an object. And one more type of orthographic parallel projection is axonometric parallel projection, and it could be of type isometric. So these are the different types of projections that we could have. So here you can see that by using orthographic parallel projections we could able to display the top view, front view and the side view of an object, and the dimensions in parallel projections are same, and the dimensions of the object in parallel projection, that is in the orthographic parallel projections, the dimensions are same because it maintain the relative proportions of the image, and this is an example of isometric projection. So here is an example of isometric projection. Isometric projections have been used in computer games from the very early days of the industry up to today. So these are the various images and these images are displayed by using isometric projection. Now here you can see that we could able to produce realistic images by using perspective projection. Perspective projections are much more realistic than parallel projection. So if you want to produce realistic images, then you have to use perspective projection. So this is all about today's lecture. Thank you.